Only in America.
Only in America.
Only in America.
Only America.
Only in America.
This week, we celebrate the history, heritage, and perennial influence of immigration in the U.S.
You know, the issue about immigration, it's repetitive. It's like an ongoing issue, but because the roots of migration has not been addressed. And for me, it's important. Every day I wake up and it is part of who I am and what I do and what inspire me every single day and everything that I do.
From the National Immigration Forum, I'm Joanna Taylor, filling in for Ali Noorani this week. And this is Only in America. June is Immigrant Heritage Month, so for the next 2 weeks, we'll be looking at not only the American identity, but also specific stories of why the contributions of immigrants, those who came here to work hard, seek opportunities, or find protection, are so important. We had the chance to partner with Forward.us as well as Emily Ekins at the Cato Institute for these episodes. Emily and her team just released an in-depth study of over 2,500 adults, examining why Americans support or oppose a more open immigration system. 53% of the Americans they polled agreed that the ability to immigrate is a human right, and 67% had a positive view of immigrants overall. But despite this overall positive outlook, anxieties and fears around immigration to the U.S. persist as they have for centuries. For example, 55% of respondents worried immigration could lead to less social cohesion and national unity, while 41% of white Americans worry immigration will cause them to become a minority in the U.S.
I feel like a lot of the research that has been done on immigration has often tended to ask the same types of questions. And the reason they have is that they focused on the things that people say they're concerned about. They say, well, for those who are concerned about immigration, the people that want to reduce it or restrict it, they'll talk about jobs, they'll talk about wages, they'll talk about a lot of these economic things, which I think are part of it. But if you do a little research in social psychology, you'll learn pretty quickly that what people say drives them or motivates them isn't always what actually is motivating them. It's not that they're lying or being deceitful. Sometimes we don't even kind of know what's all going on, the why. And immigration is just such a emotional issue for many people. And so if you look at the data, support for more immigration has tripled over the past several decades. In the 1990s, it was around 8% or so wanted to increase immigration. Now it's about a third. So that has gone up a lot. But a third is not a majority. So what's going on? Why do a majority of people either want to just keep it the way it is or decrease it? And so that was kind of one of the motivations to figure out, okay, why don't people want more? Economists will tell you that there are tremendous benefits to immigration. So the fact that there's this disconnect between what, say, economists believe and what a lot of people say in a poll led us to want to figure out what's going on. Is it really just this economic stuff? And I think we found, sure, yeah, that plays a role. People are concerned about some of those things, but there's a whole lot more going on, and that's what we wanted to investigate.
As we'll hear later from Emily, what's clear is that Americans have different definitions themselves of what American culture even is. And consequently, they have different opinions about what it means to integrate with or adopt American culture. Today, we'll dig deeper into the numbers, I promise. But before we do, I think it's important to remember what these numbers really represent. While they're a critical part of understanding the current immigration landscape and its public perception, data can often depersonalize. Immigrants are more than data points, and their stories should be told in their own words. Edilsa came to the U.S. when she was 13, from Guatemala.
It was about when I was 13 years old. It was first, initially, we came with my mom, and we were, little. We were living in extreme poverty over there in Guatemala, which is one of the major reasons why we left. And we had a very violent father as well. So we were also kind of running away from him as well. My mom made the decision to bring us to the United States to kind of give us a safer life. And we came undocumented actually on the way here. It wasn't a very nice trip. It was really horrible, terrifying situation. It's not easy at all for kids or anyone to come to the United States. I was like kidnapped on my way here, so it was really terrible situation. But I ended up coming. But I'm actually glad that I'm here now and that I have a life. And my mom actually had to be hiding us because we couldn't enroll in school then, and she didn't know how to. We had just come here undocumented, and she didn't know how to. So we were not we wouldn't be able to go outside. We were locked in our apartment, and she would not allow us to go at all outside. And also because we were so scared of the police before. We were extremely scared, I guess traumatized by getting police or immigration come for us. So we literally were locked in the first year in the room, and that that was how our lives was before when we had just arrived. And then, we ended up enrolling in school, and it was definitely a challenge because, I mean, we didn't speak English, and I was extremely shy. I was like, I came traumatized, so it was even worse for us having to, be placed in school and not know anything about, the language and things like that, or what was going on. We were also very scared just about anything. So yeah, definitely was a challenge for us on the first years coming to the United States.
Jessica was born in Ecuador, and like Edilsa, came to the U.S. when she was young, just 2 years old. Like many families when they first came to America, multiple households shared a small living space, but they were like a family.
When we first came to America, we were living with two other families in a very, very small apartment. And, for me as a child and looking at it now as a pediatrician, I want to build up that resilience in children and start thinking of that as something positive. So yes, maybe our homes were a little too crowded, but at the same time, that means that hopefully mom has a large social support group that she can draw upon, to help her raise her kids. And really, I think that's what I grew to love about my own community is that, despite everything, we are very tight knit. We know how to get around. I remember being told if you go to the bodega will know who's living in the neighborhood because they always see them. They always talk to each other. And I think that's really special.
And as Emily explains, the Cato Institute study shows why first, second, and third generations continue to come to the U.S. The main reason is economic opportunity.
And for many, it was for fleeing some sort of persecution, whether it was political, religious, just general violence. So those are the reasons people came. And then we were able to ask them about some of the experiences they've had here, and as well about their attachments to the U.S. And what really struck me is that if you look at first generation immigrants, so these are individuals who were born abroad. And so they have attachments to multiple places. That's just totally normal. Yeah. They're overwhelmingly patriotic, 74% or so. I mean, this was more than American liberals. So that kind of puts it into context. So a little less than conservatives, but more than liberals. That's where it kind of in the middle there that are patriotic, but they had a lot more experiences that I would say made them feel like outsiders, way more likely for people to have assumed they weren't American when they are, to have had people make fun of the food that they ate, little things that just kind of make you feel like you're on the outside looking in. So to me, that was pretty tremendous that people have really foster these attachments to the United States, despite some of those negative experiences, because I think ultimately those negative experiences are small in comparison to how happy people are to be here.
I felt that Haiti was too small for my dream. I was tired of the political instability. Tired of the poverty. I remember back in 1986, I was 7 years old when the dictatorship of Duvalier ended, and I remember how was it the sense of freedom, the sense of a new hope, a new beginning for the Haitian nation, and years later, and we're talking now about 2000, 2001, being a young adult, I realized that we have democracy. Yes, indeed. But the country went from bad to worst, and on west. So at some point in my life, I had question: why is it Haiti is so bad? Why there's so much poverty? Why there's so much discrimination and injustice? Is it normal? So I had question as a young adult, and that's what at some point I wanted to discover the world. I wanted to understand is if everywhere else is the same.
That's Farah, who lives in Miramar, Florida. She says it's what she learned in Haiti that helped her thrive professionally and personally in her adopted home.
That comes first from Haiti, from the education that I received from Haiti, from my mother, my parents, my family, my schools, my teachers, which I still admire and have great gratitude to or for. So the foundation was there, and when I moved here, I like to say that it is when I moved here in the United States that I had learned to love my mother more because I value the education that I received. And being, alone, even you have a husband, you have the people who support you in a certain way, but if you don't know how to live with others, if you don't have certain values, respect for yourself, respect for each other, love for others, and how to behave in society, definitely it's gonna be harder. And I think I can tell you that this foundation that I received from Haiti, this education that I received from Haiti, has tremendously contribute to my success here in the United States. Here, I adapted myself. So it's like, okay, let me learn the best of United States. Okay, let me steer people's brain. So if you do something a certain way, and I see, oh wow, yeah, that works, and that will amplify or improve my skill set, and especially because I'm as an immigrant, I have to transition from a French system, which is we have in Haiti, to an English system, and how to as a professional also I'm changing career, so all this thing I learned to adapt myself, and again with the goal to succeed.
Speaking about their first experiences in America, Jessica and Farah described their struggles to adapt to a new country.
Growing up, I was pretty much your typical American kid, minus the fact that my parents were undocumented. And I mean, I remember one thing to me was always, first day of school, people ask, was there anyone who was born here or outside of the United States out of pure curiosity? And they're like, pretend you were always born here. And so I never really knew why they wanted me to say that, but it was important that I did what they said. So anyhow, I grew up with tons of cousins. I had a younger brother. I was the oldest out of everybody, learning how to navigate the education system, everything from going into high school to getting into college. When I found out that I was undocumented, though, that kind of it was a big moment. My dad was going through a deportation proceeding around the same time, which is why he had to sit both me and my brother down, and he basically spelled out what I knew my entire life unconsciously, but this time made it really real. Looking back at my own experience, growing up in this community where, I wasn't really a citizen, but I was yet growing up in America and having all these like conflicts as a child. So, for example, when I was growing up, I remember I used to have a lot of stomach pains, and my mom would always just try to cure them herself with chamomile tea. But for somebody who was kind of growing up in the American system, it was hard to understand, well, why can't, we see a doctor or a physician? Especially because I got really well with my own pediatrician.
It was stressful, scary, full of incertitude. wondering what would be the future, how I'm gonna navigate, and coming from Haiti, where hey, I have my life, my whole life, and like I said, I have an easy life, I could say, but coming here was different. A new system, you have to navigate in the system, you have to learn the language, and it was kind of stressful. But because I'm a self-motivated person, and I came with a goal to understand what make America great, and to understand why my country is failing. So I had my little notebook. I take notes. I set my goals and I review my goals and my notes and what to do. Information. I was also saving information that they were giving to me, either a person name, an organization, and information how the system works. And so I was very disciplined in terms of how to continue this journey, and I met wonderful people. I had wonderful people who have supported me, become a extended family to me. I kind of create the support system that I needed, that helped me to succeed.
Edilsa had a unique support system through school, which was jarring but also expanded her sense of the world.
It was a major shocking worldview because I came from a very small village where we didn't even have TV there. And it was like a small village within a volcano kind of thing, because I actually come from an indigenous roots. So my background is indigenous, and like everyone there is like dressed in indigenous clothes, and we live in we live a small village, it's not like a city or anything like that. So when I came to the US and I saw that, it was really a big shock for me, because it was the first time that I learned about slavery, or about like, oh, like there's other countries, and like there's Bosnia and Russia that I had no idea, and most of them had refugee stories. So I heard like back in the time there was like a Bosnia like genocide, I believe it was like during a time, and all the kids from there were in that high school, and they would share their stories, and it was just wow, we were all the same. So it was definitely like a major, I guess, a worldview for me, but at the same time, I think that we united with the same story. So it was kind of like homey. My high school was kind of homey for me. Honestly, my high school was the best refuge place for me at the time when I came to the United States, even more than my house. My teachers became like my parents for me. I had really great teachers that I still have in contact, that I'm still in contact with. But it was definitely shocking for me, like learning other languages, other cultures, and then like meeting other people from that I've never known existed, or from other countries. So it was I'm happy that I was placed there.
Even after that, Edilsa says the road to college was just as difficult.
Because one time I went to one of my teachers and he told me, oh, you can go to college, because he thought that I was like pretty smart and everything. I was like, college? Oh, what is that? He's like, well, it's a place that you can just go and learn more and become like a profession or something. I was like, how do I go there? He said, well, you can get a scholarship. And what is a scholarship? And so he like told me it's free money. And I was like, what? Like, I was mind blown. And then ever since then, I mean, I feel like my world just like opened up, because I have so much love for education and learning. Like, I love learning. So when they told me that I could do that and keep like learning, I was just, and so from the moment that I heard about college and the moment that I heard about scholarship, it was like nonstop for me. It's like, let me find out what this is about. And I remember that I enrolled into a program, and then I ended up getting kicked out, by the way, because they found out I wasn't a citizen. But during the time that I was there, they took me to like college tours, and one of the tours was going to UT Austin, and I just fell in love with that university, and was like the top university in my city, and I said I want to go to UT. And I remember that I walked to my high school counselor because then we had one, and I told him, look, I want to go to college. And he said, okay, yeah, let's make it happen. So he said, where do you want to go? And I said, I actually got this letter, which is an invitation to go to apply to UT Austin. And then he literally just opened the letter. He looked at me and he kind of like laughed at me because he told me, sweetie, I know that you have so many dreams but you need to realize that this is really hard. So I think let's look at other options. Like, why don't you think about this? And for me, it was like, I got a little bit sad because I can't, I wanted to go there, but he told me I couldn't go there. So he just like grabbed my letter and she threw it on the trash. And so I left, his classroom. And then literally, I think that same day I came back and I just picked up my letter and I was like, I'm just going to show him that I'll go there, And I just did everything that I could on my own. And eventually, I got accepted. And when he found out that I got accepted, he was just mind blown, I was just mind blown too. It was so hard. It was not easy at all. It was hard to get accepted into college because first I had no money at all, and back in the time my mom wasn't with me anymore. So I was actually in the time I didn't have my mom with me, and I didn't have a house. I was living with a lady. So it was very challenging to come out with the money. And so I applied to as many scholarships as I could. And, but it was just mind blowing that I got accepted into my dream college. It was just amazing.
Similarly, Jessica says the college process wasn't easy.
So my first year of college, I remember being told, you could do pre-med, but at this point, there isn't a path for you to go to medical school. There's going to be financial loans that are in the way. I remember even if I wanted to volunteer at a hospital, they asked for a social security number and background check. So there were all these obstacles already there set in place freshman year. And this was before the DACA program was introduced. So I remember I started volunteering at an internship called Play Lab. And it was actually really wonderful because that's what introduced me to pediatrics and child development. So it kind of worked out really well. So when DACA was introduced, I remember feeling both very nervous and excited, but also scared. My parents didn't understand much about the program, but they immediately wanted me to apply. I was a little bit more cautious because I remember thinking that's a lot of information that they want. And I remember being surprised. Well, it's a great, fantastic opportunity, but it's also only like a 2-year thing. So I remember thinking, well, where does that leave me after 2 years? But I took advantage of it. I went and I found a nonprofit immigration legal services, and they helped me fill out my paperwork. It was impressive. I remember thinking, this is my entire life gathered here, getting medical records, school records, everything month by month to prove that I had been here for such a long time. So when it was approved, I remember I had tears of joy in my eyes. I was incredibly happy. This meant that I could help support my family. I got my first job, my learner's permit, even though not immediately my driver's license. That took some time. But yeah, it opened the doors for me to be able to volunteer at the hospital and then eventually work there, apply to medical school, become available for all these types of opportunities that wouldn't have happened otherwise.
There's a book that Thomas Sowell wrote a while back on migration. And he was talking about the societies that became very closed, got stagnant. They didn't remain dynamic and competitive. But when you had societies that were more open, where you had people that could enter, and trade and immigration, all of those things kind of kept the society on their feet, on their toes. And so to me, one benefit is that kind of, bringing the best and the brightest of the world who are excited to be here, who are choosing to be in the United States. Most people are not choosing where they live, right? But the people that immigrate are choosing, and how that makes a society better. that is better for America.
But once given these opportunities, each of them made the most of it, something we tend to consider a pretty American outlook.
Kind of growing up, you become more comfortable in taking on a little bit more of a leadership role in your family. So that was my situation. When I realized that I was undocumented, I like many people, you want to do something, and you come to realize that the only power that you have is through your own story and your own voice, because you only need one person. You only need one person who knows how to do something, and then you can help so many more people by teaching them that skill, and then they go and tell other people how to do this, and that's kind of how you grow your community and how it becomes rich with all these resources. It's because you have such a strong social support network. And the Latina perspective is very, very important. It's very undervalued. I think only as someone who has gone through all these experiences can help others really understand and know where they're coming from, which is why we need more Latinos and Latinas in the healthcare profession.
And I think I can tell you that this foundation that I received from Haiti, this education that I received from Haiti, has tremendously contributed to my success here in the United States. Here, I adapted myself. So it's like, okay, let me learn the best of United States. Okay, let me steer people's brain. So if you do something a certain way, and I see, oh wow, yeah, that works, and that will amplify or improve my skill set, and especially because I'm as an immigrant, I have to transition from a French system, which is we have in Haiti, to an English system. And how to, as a professional also, I'm changing career, So all this thing I learned to adapt myself, and again, with the goal to succeed.
A goal to succeed, or being number one. Let's go back to Emily Ekins and that study.
I don't think you have to view yourself as a citizen of the world to be pro-immigration. I think that one could absolutely have, because this actually comes down to another kind of a more central core conflict between the kind of the political left and right about whose interests should come first. We even asked about this. When making policy, is it more important to put the interests of the United States and its citizens first, or is it more important to do what will benefit the most people regardless of nationality? Liberals will say, do what's best for regardless of nationality. Republicans say, put America first. Well, I would say, I think that you can put America first and also be pro-immigration. Because if you look at the benefits that immigration brings to the United States, that's putting America first.
You also don't have to be Republican or Democrat to value hope for a better future. Farah says that's an important part of being an immigrant.
I would say first, the sense of humanity that Haitians have. We respect others. We care for others. We like to share what we have. We tend also to trust people, but we also carry our slavery stigmatism. That's part of who we are. But our resilience is very strong, and more values, family values. These are values that I still cherish, and that still inspire me. The issue about immigration, it's repetitive. It's like an ongoing issue, but because the roots of migration has not been addressed. And for me, it's important. Every day I wake up, and it is part of who I am and what I do and what inspire me every single day and everything that I do.
Which is also American identity, helping your neighbor, being resilient, and championing hope. Our guests today have been Jessica Astudillo, Emily Ekins, Farah Larrieux, and Edilsa Lopez. You can read more about each of this week's guests on our website, immigrationforum.org/podcast. We'll be back next week to talk more about Immigrant Heritage Month. If you like what you hear, subscribe to Only in America, wherever you're listening to this episode. Only in America is produced and edited by Katie Lutz, Becca Wall, and me. Our artwork and graphics are designed by Carla Leja. Ali will be back next week. Support for the National Immigration Forum comes from the Carnegie Corporation of New York, supporting innovations in education, democratic engagement, and strengthening international peace and security. And from Humanity United. When humanity is united, we can bring a powerful force for human dignity.